Okay, we're live on YouTube.
Yep. We're moving on. Got it. Let me start. Recording in progress. How are you, Peter?
Very well, Don. And a little chilly Friday evening, but it is October and it is in Moscow, so what would one expect?
Yes, that's true.
We're live on YouTube. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. On. Got it. Let's... Start.
Looks like we have an echo.
Yes, we have to deal with that, but so it's getting chilly, is it?
Yeah, we had a nice Indian summer for about 2 weeks, but now it's beginning to turn. It's the rainy season.
Yeah. Right. So we already got some people. James H is already here. So that's really nice. And we have Buddy, who's already made his appearance, which is also excellent. Indignant that we're using his image without his getting proper compensation. All right, so Peter, I mean, the outrageous news of the day, I guess, is the Andrew McCabe getting his pension back. I mean, it's quite outrageous. I mean, here we have this absolute hoax that was perpetrated on America, hoax that was perpetrated on the world, and these scummy people, the people who are actively engaged in perpetrating this essentially criminal enterprise. They're going on with full pension. He's going to get all the back pension back that he lost out on. And remember, after he was kicked out, there was a GoFundMe scheme to find some money for him. So I guess he's going to keep all that. He's not going to return any of that money. He's become a very wealthy man.
And the government picks up the tab for his legal fees.
Yeah, exactly. The government picks up the tab for his legal fees. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, I just hope that Durham is going to come up with something, because otherwise this is really an absolute scandal. So,
but I don't understand. It was the FBI, his employer, let him go for the what they call lack of candor.
Lack of candor, yeah.
4 times.
Yeah.
4 times.
Yeah.
And he was let go. It wasn't Trump that fired him.
No.
It was his own organization. So exactly. What is the rationale of the same organization is saying, okay, we change our position and we expunge from the record of what happened to you, as if it never happened. So they're airbrushing it away. And there's only one question I have. What do you think, General Flynn? Because you didn't lie and you were railroaded in a political targeted show trial.
Yeah.
And are you getting anything? Because a proven liar by his own organization, the FBI, it's not me, it's not George, it's not the Gaggle, it was the FBI, the DOJ.
Yes,
made that assessment.
Yeah. It's so shocking, and you are completely right, because General Flynn did not lie to Peter Strzok during that interview. Even Strzok didn't think that he had lied. And even though he was sandbagged in that interview, in that they told him, oh, no need for you to show up with an attorney which after all, Flynn wasn't a fool. He said, should I, have my attorney with me? No, 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 no. So they misled him. And then their initial conclusion was he didn't lie. And then they manipulated that later on, writing that phony baloney 302s, even though they misplaced the original 302, in order to make it seem like he lied. So yeah, look at what happened to him, the horrific several years ordeal that he had to go through. Meanwhile, McCabe walks off with his very nice pension. It really is just mind-boggling.
It's such an affront to any kind of sense of justice.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy that was at the very center of this hoax.
Yes.
And lives were destroyed. The country divided. We may never recover from it because it's always a motif now.
Yes.
It's not. You might say how you fall on mandates and COVID and Fauci. No, how you fall on Russiagate, because there's a lot of people that believe it to this day.
To this day, and you're absolutely right, because it is going to be haunting Trump for forever. If he's going to run in 2024, he probably will. Immediately, the whole Russia thing is going to be accused again: traitor, treason, Putin's puppet, all of this. Because of this absolutely ridiculous thing that they came up with. And they lied throughout. I mean, it's not just on this minor technical thing that the inspector general found. I mean, they were lying about everything. They lied about Flynn. They lied about that whole Flynn was having an affair with some Russian general's daughter. I mean, it's complete nonsense. And then they say, when they said, well, we really can't go with this Russian agent anymore, so let's come up with some new thing. The Logan Act. Oh, good. Let's all go with the Logan Act, guys. So this whole thing, what they put the country through, what they put the world through, and then you just walk away. Okay, nice. He's going to keep his nice TV gig, makes a nice chunk of change at CNN, and he gets his full pension. And of course, Comey has his professorship. Imagine attending classes in which Comey is lecturing. I think, what is it, on ethics, governmental ethics.
Well, it's like the officer that killed Ashley Babbitt.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the same guy. He left his loaded firearm in the men's room. Okay. No problem.
No problem there. That's a loaded firearm in the men's room. No.
And everybody knows why he wasn't fired. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But if George had left the firearm in a men's room in the Capitol, you'd be sending him oranges. Okay.
Exactly. That's anybody else. Leave a loaded firearm in the men's room. You're going to jail. Just like, was it Hunter Biden?
Should.
Yeah. Should. Yeah. Exactly. So we got a first super chat from Detroit Rock City. Thanks very much, Detroit. Nice to see you again. And he says, Victoria Newland is back at it, this time in Beirut. Yes, indeed. I mean, she visits Beirut.
And there's snipers.
It's like chaos and murder follow Victoria Newland wherever she goes. That's right. Remember the horror of Maidan with her the EU, and Yats is the guy, and Klitsch has to go. But yeah, I mean, now here she is in Beirut, and then there's almighty shoot up there. So yeah, it's Yeah.
This is such a weird definition of meritocracy. It's completely inverted, perverted.
It wasn't even like that in the Soviet Union, because in the Soviet Union, you failed, you were out. I mean, it's like there was still you gone. I mean, so maybe even unfairly, like, hey, and we got another failed harvest, you're gone. I mean, even though it's not really his fault, the failed harvest, but somebody has to take the rap for a failed harvest. But here you just fail and fail and fail. Newland, wherever there's a failure, Newland is always at the heart of it. But she goes on, big promotion. Now she's, I think, number 3 in the State Department, very senior position.
George and I pointed out yesterday when we were doing our podcast, is that Victoria Nuland goes to Moscow to talk about the situation of the Donbass when she herself was a key engineer of wrecking Ukraine in the first place. Okay? That's like asking an arsonist to come and do a fire inspection in your house.
That's it. And I think, as we agreed on yesterday, I think it's a faux pas on the part of the Russians to lift the persona non grata status from her. I don't think there's any reason. I think in every way she has been a hostile actor toward Russia. Leave aside the Maidan, but all her writings, all her commentary, this is not a person. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And so there's absolutely no reason for them to accept her as a visitor. But and I think, as you pointed out, she wants to meet. Like we can meet in a neutral place. Let's meet in Helsinki or whatever. But there's simply no reason for the Russians just to have her there. And
as far as we know, of course we weren't in the room. I don't see what the Russians got out of it.
Yeah, right. And they say, oh, well, there was an exchange, and some Russian had his persona non grata status lifted. I doubt whether that Russian was as senior as Nuland. Nuland is number 3 in the State Department. Nuland gets to meet the deputy foreign minister. That's how senior she is. So I don't think it was anyone on her level that the Americans lifted the persona non grata status. So I think it's a foolish move on the part of the Russians. So here's Star Rover saying Victoria Nuland goes to Russia. She's queen of the neocons and obscene, obese. Getting a little on the on the insulting side, which not necessarily I disagree, but we don't want to go down anything that we don't want to say things that might get us banned from YouTube. So leave that just. Yeah,
but I mean, just to reinforce the point here, I mean, bad behavior is not punished, and again, people really like to make these juxtapositions: Trump versus Biden, Republican versus Democrat. It's not the case, you guys. This is how the foreign policy blob is run, okay? And it's to what degree they will obstruct the president. In the case of Trump, they went full blast, okay, full kilter against Trump. But it's the same thing here. I mean, did they brief Joe on what Victoria Nuland was going to say? I doubt it.
I doubt it. But it's a kind of an interesting thing is that there were no news conferences at the end of her meetings. All we had was a somewhat anodyne commentary from Zaharova, but she didn't really say anything very much. So I really don't see any reason to think that there has been any great diplomatic breakthrough.
But she did refer to Nuland as Victoria, which you and I got a couple of.
Yes. Yeah, but in the end, there really isn't very much there. I mean, I guess from the Russian point of view, they're happy when there is negotiation. But having her there, however, is kind of obnoxious. I mean, even though they've entertained some awful people over the years. They had what was the name of the guy who was the national security advisor to Trump? The mustache guy whose name just escapes me. With the thick mustache.
Bolton.
Bolton, exactly, John Bolton. He was there, and. So Bolton actually got to meet Putin. So I think Putin gave him an audience.
Which we have a record of that, but when Joe Biden had his private meeting with Putin, which we have no record of whatsoever.
Yeah. That's right. But I think the Russians, like like the idea of talking, and I think that's a perfectly commendable. But I think certain things that are openly insulting to them, and I think they should really partake of it.
No argument from me.
Right. So Herman Montoya, our old friend, says Anthony Blinken is now seeking advice from Condoleezza Rice. Yeah, I didn't read that, but that wouldn't surprise me. She was National Security Advisor, then Secretary of State. Very mediocre Secretary of State, one should say. I mean, one would have to say that the debacle of the Georgia War of 2008 has to be on her shoulders, because she was the one who just visited Saakashvili and clearly gave him the green light. So that was that's her great contribution. So
yes, and what was it? Invading Iraq will be the birth pangs of democracy in the Middle
Thanks to democracy. Yeah, no,
That's the caliber of thinking there.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wilkerson, the chief of staff for
Colin
Powell, go over to the gray zone and take a look at, I think it was Aaron Mate, and Wilkerson has some very choice words for Condoleezza Rice.
Right. Yes, that's.
And the only reason why I mention it is that they were contemporaries. They were there at the same time. Okay,
right.
So he said witness. Okay.
Yes, no, that's right. We have Condoleezza Rice. She was the National Security Advisor in George W. Bush's first term, and then we had Colin Powell. I mean, he was the Secretary of State. So they were the masters of that Iraq invasion. But again, Condoleezza Rice goes on failing upwards. I mean, she then she's now the head of the Hoover Institution. So that is a very cushy gig. I mean, all you do, I was out at the Hoover Institution for a while. A beautiful place because it's on the Stanford University campus, which is a wonderful place. I mean, it's like, you get that as your gig, like Michael McFaul. I mean, you're in clover. I mean, imagine living your life on the Stanford campus. But anyway, so there's a Hoover Institution. It's located there on the Stanford campus. And all you have to do when you're president, you do a lot of fundraising. But fundraising means essentially you're just having a lot of dinners. Yeah, and you have dinners with all these rich Silicon Valley types who come there and write out their checks. It's a very, very boring job, but not exactly very demanding, and it's very well compensated.
But there are exceptions. Thomas Sowell, which is a real hero of mine.
Well, he's just a fellow there. Yeah, that's right.
You don't really have to do anything, but he's written like 30 books.
No, exactly. No, that's right. There are people there, the senior fellows at Hoover, who've written nothing. I mean, it's like, I remember being out there and thinking, how do I get a gig like this? Just get, I live here out on this beautiful university campus, the smell of eucalyptus everywhere. And I don't even have to do any work. So, but, it's a kind of a mystery how they hand out these nice little gigs.
Like God, meritocracy works in strange ways.
It does indeed. So we have Susanna, who's very, very generously donated to us, as she says, very, very nicely. So just want to let you know both how very much I appreciate all you do. Well, that's very nice of you, Susanna. And, we really appreciate your help, your contributions. You post things on our locals board, which is really nice, and you've been very generous. So really appreciate you joining us and helping us.
Yeah, and because in many ways, I'll really kind of say the truth here. I hope you don't get angry with me, George. But George and I put a lot of time in our life. Okay, not just a few hours before we do our podcast, but our whole life experience. And I really feel the need to point out where people are being deceived and gaslit, and it's on so many topics now. It's on so many things. And the public service that we provide, I hope, is that, you don't have to go through all the loops. We do it for you, okay? And I do it gladly, okay? because for us, it's a labor of love. It's something, and George and I have a very specific niche, I tend to think, and I think we do a good job at it. I'm really proud of our work.
No, I think that's right. I think we have contribute on a wide variety of topics, and we bring, I think, a distinctive perspective on world affairs. I mean, we're both outside the United States, but we both spent many years living in the United States, so we know a lot about it. But we also have bring the perspective of other countries, and so we can see how the United States is seen from the rest of the world. So I think we do have a very distinctive point of view, and I think we try to somehow get out from the cliches, the mainstream media cliches that predominate so much of foreign policy coverage. So we try to do our best, and and it's so great that we found a community here, and fellow Gagglers who appreciate what we do and contribute a great deal themselves, post things, make interesting comments, take part in these super chats. So it is a lot of fun.
And because of the incompetence of our elites, there's a lot of comic relief. I have to say that, okay? Because basically we're ruled by buffoons, okay? And we will never tire of pointing that out.
That's right.
Skippy just wants to make a quick appearance.
I wonder if your dogs kind of feel a little resentful that Buddy gets to have his image, but they don't get an image. Buddy gets compensation, even, however limited, for the use of his image, and they get nothing. I mean, they think, hey, I'm as good as Buddy. I mean, so what about my image?
Well, one thing I can say for sure, they recognize your voice, believe it or not. They
do?
They know that when I'm sitting in my chair in front of my computer and they hear this voice, George's voice, and it's going to be a while, take a nap.
So speaking of insults, so we had the insult of the Newland visit, but then something that we just mentioned casually in yesterday's podcast, we have the insult of Christopher Hill being named ambassador to Belgrade. This is the guy who drew up those Rambouillet Accords. I mean, they were drawn up in a phony, fraudulent way, guaranteed to trigger rejection from Serbia. That was the only reason. They tried to make it as humiliating to Serbia as possible, in the hope that the Serbs would just simply say, no, we can't do it. And that was Hill's job. But the interesting thing was that Milosevic was very shrewd. I mean, he knew exactly what was going on in the US policymakers' mind. They knew that this trap was being set. They wanted to provoke a rejection. So Hill draws up this agreement, and Milosevic said, yeah, I think we have a basis here. We can work with this. And I mean, the agreement was basically that Kosovo is independent of Serbia, but Serbia is not independent of Kosovo. In other words, Serbia gets nothing from Kosovo. On the other hand, Serbia still has to provide all sorts of subsidies, welfare, subsidizing industry, everything still has to come from Belgrade. Any trade agreements that Serbia signs, Kosovo gets a share. Trade agreements Kosovo signs, Serbia gets nothing. So they said, okay, this is the agreement. I said, yeah, all right, we can work with this. And then they put in that famous Appendix B, and they said that, well, yeah, okay, well, but remember, we have to enforce it. So we have to have 30,000 NATO troops based in Kosovo and free movement throughout Serbia, and complete immunity for all NATO personnel. In other words, they can commit any crimes at all. It's complete immunity. So, and then they can move around anywhere, Belgrade, anywhere. No restrictions. And that was the point at which Milosevic said, we can't put up with. And they said, oh, that's it. We've got our rejection. Now we can bomb.
So we can borrow a phrase from an earlier time. What is mine, and what is yours is negotiable.
That's it. And here was this person. He was the one who drew up these agreements. I have to be, share great disappointment in the current Serbian government that they would accept a person like that as ambassador. I mean, there's just such an insult, but unfortunately,
I've been told over the years. I mean, there's a contingent of Westernizers, Atlanticists, and all that, and they are definitely there. And the power of Western NGOs, do not underestimate it. Do not underestimate it.
I agree. I mean, these people who are there, as leaders. They're ready to sell their grandmothers. Give them some EU membership, or they'll sell their grandmothers. The only reason they haven't done it is that they're just terrified of the people, because the people just absolutely reject it. But they would have given up on Kosovo years ago if it weren't for the sort of the fury of the Serbian people that this would generate. I mean, you remember when I think it was last year when Putin visited Belgrade, and there were these massive crowds. I mean, they were just yelling, Putin, Putin. It was just so overwhelming that Putin was visibly embarrassed, because all of this affection was directed at him, not at the government, who were his hosts. So he looked a little uncomfortable in all of this, but it's just a reflection of what the Serbian people actually think of their government, and how much they are devoted to Putin, but not to the people who are actually running Serbia today.
You never underestimate. It's something that George and I have talked about repeatedly, is elite capture and the different mechanisms they have. And I think my throwaway line is, and the buffet is over, or talking about buffets. But I mean that seriously to a large extent, because these trinkets that they give them, trips, fellowships, language courses, all kinds of little gimmicks and goodies. And there's a milieu of people that they want the allure of status, okay, and we're with the good guys, and they're self-hating Serbs, okay, and I've seen self-hating self-hating Russians too.
No, there's very much people like that in Russia, exactly. And they'll get nice gigs, a nice professorship here, work at some foundation, some think tank, maybe some business consultancy. They're going to be looked after. They're going to spend the rest of their lives in clover. So they're ready to sell out. Kosovo, take Kosovo. I don't care. But it's somehow the people are not going to tolerate it.
The same thing happened with Crimea. And I got into a number of arguments. I mean, it was a very unpleasant time. And when there was a referendum in Crimea, and these liberals that I know wouldn't necessarily call them friends, and say, what is it worth to us? Why should we care? Why should we pay for it? And I said, you don't understand. We have a phrase in English: you give an inch, they take a mile. That will be just the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you say, and you say yes now, they will force you to say yes forever.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. And it was kind of an interesting thing what happened in Serbia, because there was the people who came into power after Milosevic. There was the liberals, around Djindjic, and they held power for a while. But I think that the NATO and the United States, they sort of decided these people are not going to be able to deliver on Kosovo, because they just don't have, any support in the country. So let's bring on the people who are kind of, on the right, the people who are formerly with Milosevic's party. And so Vučić, who is the president of Serbia, he actually worked for Milosevic. And they thought, well, maybe we can get him to sell out. And Vučić was pretty happy. Yeah, I'll sell out. Just how much? But again, he's not able to pull it off. Try as he might, he just can't pull it off, because the Serbian people just won't tolerate it. So, so that's why, why did the Serbs accept Christopher Hill as ambassador? Well, why not? I mean, no skin off their nose. I mean, if you were Vučić was in that government in 1999. So he then knew about Christopher Hill and the Rambouillet Accords, and even so, he accepts him as the U.S. ambassador. Then that gives you a measure of the man. But that's unfortunately the case. I mean, those are sort of leaders that Serbia is stuck with.
and Brussels sends back Donald Tusk to Poland to,
Yeah, exactly.
to do their bidding for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just had a very interesting chat. A Gaggle we spoke to right before our podcast here, talking about in Polish they call it manifestations, these rallies, and a society that is very, very divided on social issues. And Donald Tusk, who actually is not even ethnically Polish, he's what is it? He's a Kashub. That's a very small minority in the northern part of the country, and he's supposed to go be on some kind of rescue program for the EU. So he's representing the EU. The former president of Poland, he's representing the EU.
That's right.
And his mission is to flip Poland or keep Poland under control.
That's right. That's it. Yeah.
This is the kind of elites I'm talking about.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's a very good example of what you just said. There's a question here. We have, but hello guys, from Kiro Luis, or Chiro Luis, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Is that hello guys, any updates on the Americans teasing the Japanese towards the Kurils? So this seems to have exploded in recent days with the Japanese now saying, well, we're not going to sign any stinking peace treaty until we get a settlement on the Kuril Islands. I mean, I know this is an ongoing, long-standing thing, but it just seems strange for the Japanese again to be bringing this up. Why would they do this? Again, Russians just simply will reject this out of hand. No peace treaty, and it's not clear to me why the Japanese would want to antagonize the Russians at this time.
Well, maybe they're getting prodded a little bit.
I think that may be.
I think that's what it is, because any government in Japan that's going to draw a line in the sand, they know what the response is going to be. So you can throw up the flag and see who salutes. Nobody does, and then it's just a pro forma. It's a politics of theatrics. It has no meaning, and there's no immediate predicate and context at this point in time.
No, I think that's right. But I mean, the Russians are very stickler. The Kuril Islands, they say these are ours. This was a legitimate war booty or whatever after World War II, and that's it. I mean, that's not up for negotiation. So if you want a peace treaty, then you have to drop this. But nonetheless, that suddenly the Japanese have brought this up. At the moment, given all the sort of the geopolitical balls that are bouncing in the air, it seems a little strange for Japan to antagonize Russia. It's not a good move.
Well, somebody that's looking for a buffet in Washington. Sorry, it's probably more truth to that than any other thing.
That's right. We have a nice contribution from Star Rover, good friend of ours, and it says keep up the good work. So thank you so much. That was much appreciated. And then we had another one. Yes, so we have Coop W says asked a very good question. Why is it only Americans who get the Havana syndrome? That's a puzzle.
Hey, I mean, Congress has just allotted some money. I mean, I hear this ringing in my ear, I mean, maybe I can get some, okay?
I think so, yes. I definitely think you should apply because, you say, hey, I got to help me, I'm living here in Moscow, I'm getting this, humming in my ears, where is it coming from? So, yeah, absolutely. You should
the State Department, everyone, to be clear, the State Department already said such a syndrome does not exist. Okay. And now Congress is allotting a chunk of money for people that claim to be victims of it. And why is it only Americans? It's very bizarre. It could be McDonald's, maybe this is a late stage McDonald's manifestation of a Big Mac, that's in your genetic code or something. I don't know, but it's completely farcical. It's like the what was the story out of Afghanistan, the bounties. It's like the bounties. It's completely invented.
Yes. Yeah. But imagine thinking, well, the Russians are doing this. Why would they? What's the mentality that the Russians would do this? I mean, it's like, imagine, well, what we need to do is to have this ringing in the ears of American diplomats. I think that's going to advance Russia's national interest very nicely. Yeah, bloody good idea. Let's get this done. What an absolutely nutty idea of what goes on in the minds of others.
I mean, if the Americans think it's real, I would say, forget this Novichok stuff. Go with the crickets, okay? Crickets are on your side, okay?
So, yeah, and then Herman Montoya said, thoughts on the Havana syndrome in the US Embassy in Bogota, Colombia. Yeah, I think it seems to be just, always wherever Americans are, with, Bogota, Colombia, or anywhere else, it's always this Havana syndrome that, that's, I mean, I imagine, you complain about that, you get time off from work, and then, you get nice little workers' compensation. So, I mean, I don't know, there's probably some nice financial incentives now to complain about,
yeah, I mean,
in my ear.
I mean, post-Havana syndrome, that could be decades of therapy. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah,
it could be transferable to your descendants. We have to consider about them as
yes.
well.
That's right.
And then this the moral anguish.
Yes.
We have to add that too. Okay.
Yes, I think so. By
it's
the way,
kind of like three strikes you're out type thing.
That's right. By the way, did you see, Peter, today that apparently Pete Buttigieg, who's the transportation secretary, he's been on paternity leave since August. So we've got this almighty crisis with about distribution of goods, these choke points, empty shelves, no truckers. But he's been on paternity leave since August. So nice long paternity leave. I mean, I'm so happy that people are well compensated and and get a long, nice rest for themselves. So,
and I'm sure for his husband and child have the best health care money can buy.
Money can buy.
Paid by taxpayer.
That's exactly. So we've got Mega Wood. Also has provided us a very generous contribution. Thank you so much. And again, just says keep it up. So thank you, really, really nice of you. Thank you. You've been very, very kind to us. These are all such nice, friendly words and very encouraging words. So that's
I don't know if you saw this too, but I mean, Nancy Pelosi chastising the media for not being more pro-Biden in his agenda. Right. I mean, he said the quiet part out loud, doesn't he? All the time. See, everyone, when people tell you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was hilarious because she's chastising the media as to why aren't you getting our message out? I mean, that's what she's saying. Why aren't you getting? I mean, that's your job. And for many of them, you say, yeah, right, that is our job. And we are failing Nancy. I mean, she wants us to get her message out, and we're not doing it. So yeah, I think exactly.
And these damn journalists, they're not doing their job, and it's cutting into her Scotch time. Jeez, what a way to treat the speaker.
That's right.
It's after 5. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So she visits. Nancy. She visits the Pope, gets an audience with the Pope. Then she goes to Lisbon. Gets this ridiculous award from NATO Parliamentary Assembly. And I was kind of wondering, well, what's next on her agenda? Does she go to London and gets an audience with the Queen and with Bojo? And so, because, this is a person who's just simply fated and celebrated where she goes. But
I think that her chief of staff is checking the liquor cabinets of prominent figures in the world, and I think that's going to be a huge determination point. Comparative liquor cabinets. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think
and single malt is very high on the list.
Yes, single malt. Who was that? I can't remember. There was a publication that somehow they managed to get her expense sheet. Because she was always making all these flights using government planes to make flights to California, and they managed to get hold of her bar bill, and that was quite spectacular. was one of these websites, you know, because of Breitbart or one of these others. And it was amazing how much bourbons and scotch and gin and everything she got through. I mean, it was quite all on the public dime. I mean, it's just an amazing feat.
Yeah, well, so, you know, John Kerry, he's a gas what is it? A gas guzzler, okay? But then other people are guzzlers of other
exactly, like, you know, like to imbibe. I mean, it's quite impressive. I mean, she's what, 81, and she can still knock back a pretty dollop of alcohol. So
yeah, but after a few, she starts rolling those dentures, and it's not.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not saying that it's impressive for us, but that she's able to knock all that back.
Hey, you know, it takes a lot of hard work to be able to consume that. Okay,
I think so.
That's work. That's effort. Okay, that's determination. Okay?
That's right. Yeah. So we have Herman Montoya, who says the Pandora Papers were funded by George Soros and Pierre Omidyar. Corporations are allowed to dodge taxes in Delaware and South Dakota. Yeah, I mean, I think that whole, you know,
such a sham. It's such a total sham.
It really was. The whole thing was, you know, to start pointing fingers at others, and that, you know, we're not pointing fingers at Biden and the Biden family scam. We're not pointing fingers at Nancy Pelosi and how she got so fabulously rich over the years. But yeah, let's pick on the guy, the leader of the Czech Republic. That's good one. And then they toss in Tony Blair, but you know, Tony Blair is a yesterday's man. You know, no one cares about him anymore. So okay, we throw him to the wolves. But yeah, it was a total scam.
It was just a hit piece on two things. People that Washington is designated as an enemy. And the second group, like the King of Jordan, is, you know, keeping him in line. Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know, this is a tip of the iceberg. Okay.
Yes,
you know what this all is, folks? These Panama Papers, Pandora Papers. What this is it's really cynical. This is supposed to be the real, genuine alternative to WikiLeaks, okay? And so what they're trying to create, these are vetted by journalists, okay? That are on, you know, they're all on the pay of somebody, okay?
Yep.
And so it's such a cynical scam.
Yes.
And very, very selective, okay? Anyone that's protected by the Washington consensus, you know, you'll never see them on that list, okay? And that's what makes WikiLeaks one of the most profound organizations of our time, because their road record is impeccable. No news organization in the world can put them on the same pedestal, themselves on the same pedestal as WikiLeaks, okay?
Yeah.
And because WikiLeaks did such a good job, Julian Assange is rotting in prison.
No, I think that's right. It's a measure of, it's a direct correlation between how good a job you're doing and how much you are punished. I think it's Glenn Greenwald. I think he was on some show on Fox, and he said, you know, I know something about whistleblowers. I've dealt with whistleblowers. The real whistleblowers get punished. You know, they suffer for their whistleblowing. And then, you know, you obviously mentioned Edward Snowden, with whom we dealt very intensely, and Julian Assange, who we also knew pretty well. And then, of course, Chelsea Manning. These are real whistleblowers, and they are either in prison or in exile. The phony baloney whistleblowers, the ones, you know, who launched the impeachment scam, or the recent with the Facebook woman, they're not whistleblowers. That's why they're celebrated by the media. If you know the media wraps its arms around you, that means you're not a whistleblower. You know, you're doing the bidding of powerful entities, and that's what it was with this Pandora and Panama Papers.
Well, the interesting thing is when Snowden decided to flee, and it was a good decision. I can remember Nancy Pelosi saying, "Why didn't you come to my office? We would have protected you."
Yeah.
God, right. Okay. You know, if he'd been in her office, she would have called the sergeant at arms and would have said, "No scotch for you. Get him out."
Scotch for you. So we have a a super chat question from Ryan McDonald. Thank you, Ryan. He asks, will Republicans choose McCarthy for Speaker? Well, you know, that's a very interesting question. In other words, I'm assuming you're working on the assumption that Republicans win in 2022, and then so look, I think the Republicans are usually there's a pecking order, and you know, if you go in as the leader of the party, as the House Minority Leader, chances are you will be Speaker. I don't see at the moment any rebellion in the ranks in the House in the way that there seems to be a rebellion in the ranks against Mitch McConnell. So I think McCarthy will be Speaker should the Republicans win. I don't think McConnell will be majority leader if the Republicans win. I think this is now there's such intense hatred towards McConnell, and particularly as Trump is leading this campaign against him, that almost certainly I think they will try to displace McConnell.
I think that I don't think it will be a cakewalk for McCarthy, because I've been following some of the potential primaries coming up, Republican primaries, and then just the election in general. Buddy, calm down, calm down. And there's a lot of populists running, okay? There's a lot of populists that are sick and tired of the McCarthyite, you know, hide your head in the sand and the storm will pass. No, there's a lot. Unfortunately, in my opinion, a lot of people are being stirred because of Afghanistan. I wish it would be for more reasons than that. But given things the way they are now, if we do have like a 2010 Tea Party cadre, McCarthy's it won't be a cakewalk for him.
No, okay? I agree. I agree. I think there could well be if there is a rebellion in the ranks, and they're going to go for somebody else. You know, somebody like Jim Jordan or someone like that.
Well, and then the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Trump will weigh in.
Trump will weigh in, exactly. Now, at the moment, I mean, McCarthy has cultivated good relations with Trump, but on the other hand, he may think that he's already burnt his fingers with Paul Ryan. He doesn't want any more Ryans, basically sabotaging his agenda. So it could well be that Trump will decide to throw his weight behind somebody like Jim Jordan.
I'm sorry, George. I mean, we're not insiders, obviously, and we're far, far away. But there's no way in the world anyone can convince me that Donald Trump respects Kevin McCarthy.
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. I think he kind of summons him to come down to Mar-a-Lago and then tells him what's what. So, but I think McCarthy just doesn't get him as angry as McConnell, even though McCarthy, said all sorts of things to the media, about, well, I told, Donald Trump on January the 6th, that, hey, call off your dogs and whatever. But it's not as bad as what McConnell did. I mean, when he made that speech after the impeachment vote in the Senate. So I think McConnell is gone, and particularly I think Trump will insist that any Democrat, any Republican that he endorses commit himself to removing McConnell as leader. I think that's going to be the condition for any endorsement from him. That, yeah, I'll endorse you, but you have to commit to getting rid of McConnell. Yeah. And I think they'll do that.
And McCarthy is about as exciting as a wet towel.
Yeah,
okay?
that's
I really, really would like to see the backside of that guy. And you're right. I think McConnell, this is his last hurrah. Look, yeah. I mean, he's made his fortune. He's never worked a day in his life. Okay.
Right. Another person
he's got all his Chinese connections through his wife. Okay.
That's right. Exactly.
So, China, China, China. And, in between chanting China, 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 they're counting their money. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All of them are. Okay.
I think
it's so infuriating. Okay. It's so infuriating.
It really is.
Wall Street, all the insets in the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal, China, great investment, okay? And then, the Pentagon says, well, we have the China threat here. You don't want a war with China. You just want a whole lot more money, okay? It's such a scam, everybody. It's such a scam.
Yeah, no, I think I said, I think that what China has done, they bought up America's elite. It's they probably think that it's a good value for them. It's cheap at the price. It's cheaper to buy people than to build B-1 bombers. Because those things cost a pretty packet. But you buy the top, let's say top 10,000 people in the United States. You give them a nice chunk of change. It still doesn't come to all that much relative to having a fleet of B-1 or B-2 bombers. So I think the Chinese have done very well.
China is the great godfather of all the new buildings in the Hamptons. Okay.
Yeah.
The cynicism here, it knows no bounds. The cynicism of the elites here. Okay, and what they say, and then what they do, and they check their bank account. Oh, and George, I bet the same 10,000 people, they make more than $600, right? Do you think the IRS is going to be knocking on their door?
No. But that's we talk about this. But basically, anyone who is in that 10,000, you've got tax lawyers. They're protecting your interests. You have accountants, and you know exactly how to avoid paying your taxes. And but it's only the poor people, the people who do have $600 in their accounts. They don't have tax lawyers. They have no idea how to get around the IRS. They're the ones who are going to be hit. So it is really quite nauseating for Biden administration to say, well, we've really got to get cracking on the tax cheats. So what are we going to do? We're going to, swoop down on poor or middle-class people. We're going to squeeze them dry in order to pay for our stupid programs. In the meantime, everybody else, hey, you go, put your money into, whatever nice tax shelters, and that's it. Or, phony philanthropic enterprises, which has always been mainly a tax dodge.
Lincoln Foundation.
Yeah, so that it's
no, but what's even worse, folks, even rich people that get audited, the amount of resources the IRS has to devote to go after big money, most of the time they just say, it's too much time, could go on for a decade. We got 40 agents on it. Right. Those 40 agents, we can shake down 800 middle-class people in a week with that number.
Absolutely. That's exactly their thinking, that we can easily collect money just by shaking down ordinary people because they don't have any protection. And we could just simply, it'll be a nice, easy day in the park to squeeze them for all the money.
And you said it, George, perfectly a few days ago, and I want to repeat it because I really like it. They're going after people that have to make a decision about buying food or paying their taxes. Okay, that's right. What we're talking about.
That's it. That's exactly it. The reason they don't pay their taxes is, it's either that or they can't pay for their food. It's either that or they can't pay the rent. That's why they're having difficulties paying their taxes. So this is going to be so easy for the IRS to prey on them. Whereas you get all these the Mitch McConnell and his wife Elaine Chao. Good luck trying to get any money out of them. We know all this. Mitt Romney. Of course, they lied about Mitt Romney saying, oh, he pays 0% in taxes. That was just a lie. But it did turn out that he was only paying 13%, which is a very, very nice little sum because everybody else pays 30% or more on taxes. But, he's found out how, you can do all the carried interest loophole, all of that, how you avoid paying your fair share. That's it, 13%. This rich vulture capitalist, he pays 13% on taxes.
In the scheme of things, considering what has been done to the middle and working classes over the last 40 years, this is insult to injury, George.
Yeah.
And on top of it, everyone, the U.S. tax system is so opaque. I mean, there are people that are probably most certainly breaking the law because they don't understand the tax system. Okay.
No, it is extremely extremely complicated because, you know, well, is your home your office, and all the things, and you know, you get a tax discount on, you know, if it's, you know, your employer's car or your car or whatever. I mean, it's a wonderful gig for tax lawyers. You know, they can play around with this. But you know, the IRS, no, they're not going to waste their time going after you know, Tim Apple, because that's going to be very difficult. You know, go after you know, some Joe Schmo, you know, with $1,000. Oh, well, where'd you get this $1,000 from? You know, did you pay your taxes?
And Hunter, are you paying your taxes on your artwork? Huh? Huh? Oh, we're sorry. You commingle your bank account with your father, the president of the United States. So is he paying taxes? See, this is the hypocrisy of it. Go after someone that has $600 in their bank account, but the president of the United, what is he worth? Does anybody really know? Yeah. What is his family's worth? Where do they get their income from?
That's right.
How they generated it?
Okay?
Exactly. He got paid by Burisma. The numbers are all over the place, up to $80,000 on. Did he pay any taxes on that?
Right. Yeah. No, that's right. So we have another super chat from Kevin Dorr, who's a good friend of ours. So thanks very much, Kevin. And it says, Tom Cotton was on the Senate Select Intelligence Committee that covered for the Dems and the deep state. So many MAGA still think he's on our side, but he's a deep state rat. I kind of agree with you. I think people like Tom Cotton always just have everyone fooled, you know, because he's always on Sean Hannity or on Laura Ingraham, and I think he's also on Tucker Carlson. He said, "Oh, right, good old Tom. You know, he's with us." No. He's a, you know, he is a, as you said, I think a very much a creature of the deep state. Fierce, ferocious, mind-blowingly blind on the subject of Israel. You know, Israel can never do anything wrong. Hysterical on Iran, and no particular loyalty to Trump. I mean, that, you know, definitely, you know, and he's never had anything much on Trump. You know, once Trump prevailed, you know, Tom Cotton was there. Yeah, right. I'm in your corner. But I couldn't agree with you more. That, you know, he's basically a kind of, you know, like a Lindsey Graham. You know, they're along for the ride, but they're neocons and they have a neocon agenda.
If he had his way, we'd be back in Afghanistan in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, exactly. You know, I think Lindsey Graham is you know, it's unfortunately there's too many people who somehow, you know, batten onto, whether it's Tom Cotton or, you know, and plenty of others, think, oh yeah, he's a good guy, or Marco Rubio, yeah, good guy. You know, he's basically a MAGA person. You know, I mean, in fact, MAGA itself has become almost a kind of a meaningless term. Like, you know, as long as your position is America gets to do whatever it likes, bombs whoever it likes, sanctions whoever it likes, you're apparently a MAGA person. Hey, I'm an America first person, which means I want to, you know, bomb this country or want to impose sanctions on that country. That's America first. I mean,
yeah, and I don't know if Tom Cotton was a part of this, but Lindsey Graham, you know, making sure that Trump's DOJ couldn't fire Mueller. Okay, I mean, this is the type of caliber.
Exactly.
And George is absolutely right. I mean, they love to dive into the culture wars when they can inflame passions, and I think the Republicans do it in the wrong way, or they cave. But that's what Tom Cotton does. You know, he'll say, you know, parents should have a right to have a say at PTA meetings. Okay, and at the same time, is why aren't we at war with Iran? I mean, that's what they do.
That's right. Yeah. And that's right. So we have another super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And he asks, I think, you know, why does Poland stubbornly hold on to its Russophobia 30 years after the Soviet Union has gone? They got far more in common than with the Russians than they have with the EU. Okay, Peter, what do you think?
It's history. And part of their whole national identity is Russophobia, unfortunately. And it's actually anti-German as well, though being in the European Union, that is it's very rarely accented, but it's part of their historical DNA, and it's very hard for them to get around it, okay? Look, I lived in Poland for over 10 years. I lived in Russia over 20 years now. They're remarkably similar people. They're conservative people. Some of them like to drink a lot. There's a religious component there, and they're staunchly patriotic.
Yeah.
And you think that the commonalities would work to their advantage, but it doesn't. And it's something that it's just very, very hard to work through. And, you know, their holidays, you know, that's what molded their history. And if you look at Poland's geography, it moves around a lot, okay?
Right.
Yeah, and Russia had a lot to do with it, okay? No doubt about it, okay? Russia was an imperial empire. And so, and then, you know, Poles get street cred in the Western community for their Russophobia, okay? That's part of their value added, okay? When I was at university, I had a lot of Polish professors, economics, historians, and all, and, you know, Peter, we understand the Russians, okay? You do not know. We know these people, okay? I got that lecture all of the time, okay?
Right.
So it's a really good question, and you know what? It's really kind of sad because there's so much more to gain to work together than saying, you know, I'm the bulwark against the horde. Okay, it's infantile. It doesn't work. It doesn't get you anywhere. Okay, and then the further west you go in Europe, they say, you know, oh, those Poles are just obsessed. You know, oh my goodness.
Yes. No, I think that's right. It's also not good strategy for the Poles because it doesn't give them any leverage. Because you know, the way to get the attention of the West is if you start making nice with Russia. Because if you start making nice with Russia, then they start getting a little nervous. Hey, you know, maybe you want to get out of the Western alliance. Maybe you know these transatlantic institutional structures. You're trying to escape from them. Just like Orban. Orban gets their attention because he goes on a regular basis. He meets with Putin and Lavrov, signs agreement. You know, that gets their attention. But Poland just doesn't have the flexibility because it's, you know, it's more belligerent toward Russia than anyone else in Europe, save for the Baltics and the United Kingdom. So, you know, it's not really interesting for the rest. And as you say, you know, people like the French and the Germans, they just think, hey, well, these Poles, I mean, they're kind of crazy. You know, why are they so obsessed with history? You know, just like say, hey, it's 30 years since the end of the Cold War. Why are you still obsessing about it? So it doesn't do Poland any good.
Just to echo what George is saying, if the Poles were smart, they would take on the Russian portfolio and say, you know, we're the point people here, okay? And we have to be neighbors, and you have to, and obviously not disregard history, but, you know, they could find leverage and they would actually be at the adult table. And they would have a very important portfolio. And I always say here, leadership is when you have options. If you put yourself in a position where you have no options, you have very little leverage, and that diminishes any kind of leadership you can have. So they've just voided that and gotten nothing in return for it.
Yeah, I absolutely. So we have another super chat from our friend Susanna. Thank you so much, Susanna. And she asks a very tough question here. Gentlemen, is capitalism redeemable? It frankly seems to be the source of all our miseries. What happened to fair competition? Am I being naive? Well,
no, you're not.
No,
you're
not.
not being naive.
No, I don't think so either. It's a very good question. I think that you know, when you think of the crisis in 2008, it very much showed that, you know, capitalism has a serious structural problems. You had the financiers, who basically were in charge of capitalism, who led their economies of their countries to absolute catastrophes. They were forced governments to come in and bail them out, but they were bailed out, but ordinary people were not bailed out. So it really is, you know, the worst of what the Marxists have said is that you get, you know, essentially capitalism cannot ultimately survive in the long term, other than having these regular shocks. Then the regular shocks just spits out the ordinary people. They just superfluous, while the fat cats are protected. So that's 2008. Could be another crisis coming up at any time now.
Well, we don't have capitalism. It's corporatism.
Yeah.
It's oligarchy is what it is. Okay. And I'll probably surprise a lot of people. I consider myself a conservative. That doesn't mean I embrace capitalism. I mean, I don't know. They're always forced together. They're not naturally that way. Okay. And what we had was in the 1980s, we had this very, and I call it a fifth column of libertarians that basically captured economic policy for the right. And I really, I'm disappointed with that, because it gives a very, very warped view of what our politics should be. Again, I'll surprise people. Democracy is fine with me if it works. Capitalism is fine with me if it works. If it doesn't, I'm not going to sweat. Okay.
I think that's a very good point, and that's it's always been an issue, which is can democracy coexist with capitalism? Well, we have something with capitalism now. We're presented with this the alternative, which is all right. Socialism as practiced by Stalin. No, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that the idea of state taking over all economic activities is the answer to capitalism. But really making life difficult for capitalists, making essentially getting out of the financialization of capital, getting out of the not permitting capitalists just to move jobs overseas and expecting still to get access to their markets without suffering any consequences.
And tax cuts.
Yeah, all of that, all the tax cuts, all the tax breaks, and all the rest of it. No, I think that has to be put out of the way. I think capitalism is fine, but it has to be brought under control. And now we see with Silicon Valley that
Exactly.
This is what you get. You get these extraordinarily powerful corporations, and who apparently see themselves as more important than the state. They just do a kind of they give the finger to the state. We matter far more than you do. That's a state of affairs that is intolerable.
Yeah, and what we have, I've already used the term in our chat here today, is that we have elite capture. I mean, they've been captured. These elites have been captured. Right. Okay. There are prominent Republican Congress people that say we have to tame the tech monopolies. Well, they're taking money from them. Okay. Yeah. So when someone says capitalism, there's no need to genuflect. No, don't be ashamed. Don't genuflect. Question it. Okay, because a capitalist system should have a level playing field. Where's that level playing field? It doesn't exist. Okay. Right. And then the more you have this corporatization of our economy and the control by these oligarchs here, it squeezes out what really is capitalism. Okay. I have been a proponent of capitalism in the past because it brought ships up, everybody up. Okay. But once, this started ending in the 1980s, okay? And so, no matter what it is, whatever government policy, George and I can talk about this until we're blue in the face. Whatever government policy is, who gets hurt the most? Working people, middle class people.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And I think it's, and why I think 2008 was so instructive is that it was just a devastating blow against the ordinary people. Like, you have a bailout for the people who actually created this mess, but there's no bailout for anyone else. So it's like, well, we're the banks, bailout for you. Hey, I can't pay my mortgage, no bailout for you. It was almost like the pure expression of capitalism. This is where we got to. If you're very rich, you say, hey, if you don't bail me out, the whole system is going to crumble. You've got to give me all the money that I want. Oh, give it to me. But I can't pay my mortgage. Oh, well, you're out on the street. So And I think this is, this is what the essence of capitalism. I mean, after 2008, all the politicians said, well, we are never, never, never going to do this again. Never, 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 never. Yeah, right. Just wait for the next one.
Look, everybody, bailing out Wall Street, it was a complete farce, because you know what? There was plenty of money on Wall Street for them to figure out themselves. Okay, there was no, they didn't need $1 to figure it out. Okay, not one.
Yeah.
And it was such a scam on the public. And George is right. You can't pay your mortgage. Oh, too bad. Okay. But we have what this will sound radical. They should have nationalized the major banks and broken them up and then pushed them out. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then and let banks go to the wall. You made bad investments, tough. You just go to the wall. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to do anything for them. I mean, the people, the bank accounts, I mean, they're insured. The people who had money, in their own individual, whether it's a savings account or checking accounts, they're bailed out because the federal government does insure those bank accounts. But the Wall Street, the people who actually played around with all these securities, why did they get a bailout? I mean, there's nothing anywhere. There's no federal guarantee that they're supposed to get a bailout. But that's it. They got a bailout because it's systemic. It's systemic. The whole system is going to collapse. And then remember they have the whole hysteria. Oh God! Unless you write the check immediately, everything's going to come tumbling down. That's the crap that we don't need.
We can't let Boeing fail. We can't let Boeing fail. Oh, why? So they can keep building planes that don't fly?
That's it. Yeah, that's right. Yes. That's right. So Jenny Korn, Peter and George, do you see suspicious observers? If you do, I think you will like it a lot. I don't know, suspicious observers. It sounds like some TV show, which I don't know it, but it's
I don't know it either. Tell us more. Tell us.
Yes,
more.
Exactly. What is suspicious observers? I mean, I like the title, suspicious observers.
Well, that's kind of us.
Exactly. So, Herman Montoya points out, apropos of what you said, Peter, Boeing received $50 billion bailout from the CARES Act. Yeah, that's right. It was COVID. Shovel us some more money our way. That really is this the scam.
And it was Boeing that made the call. We need this. Concierge service, of course.
That's right. It shows you kind of the interesting that we have this apparently left wing people, politicians around. These are people happy to write the checks, to the biggest corporations ever. I mean, it's like on the tangent. There's this clip, an interview that Ilhan Omar gave, I think, to either the BBC or Sky News. And the interviewer asked her, "You're right that your hero was Margaret Thatcher. Why was Margaret Thatcher your hero?" "Oh, Margaret Thatcher, she was a woman. She didn't need, she didn't, pull herself up by her bootstraps. She didn't need anything for a man to help her out or anything. And that was something so alien to me and my upbringing and all those things." Margaret Thatcher is Ilhan Omar's hero. Now, either she's very ignorant, or basically she's just a scam artist, Thatcher, she got to be prime minister. I want to be, prime minister, whatever.
I think you have to give her a handicap. After all, she married her brother. Okay.
Married her brother, exactly. Yeah.
It's like Sandy Cortez. What do you think about the situation in Venezuela? It's complicated.
It's complicated. Well, I'm going to put out.
It's making a run for the exit.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll be putting out a statement very shortly. And where is that statement? Or another one of her statements, the kind that she puts out about Israel, all that complete gibberish. I mean, that was literally gibberish. It made no sense on any level. The macro and the micro,
the action, the macro and the action and the reaction and the.
That's it. Yeah. And then our friend Susanna.
You know when she talks like that, that's when you need Nancy Pelosi. Nancy, give me a scotch.
Okay? Exactly. Our friend Susanna being very, very generous today. Thank you so much, Susanna. And she asks, when do they raise the debt ceiling of the people? Yes, quite so. So we have the debt ceiling, which again we have the whole, always this whole hysteria that accompanies the raising of the debt ceiling. Oh my God! If we don't raise the debt ceiling, the America will renege on its debt, and then the whole world economy is going to collapse. Absolute complete nonsense. I mean, you easily pay off all of your important obligations. You pay all the bondholders, you pay your interest on your debt, you pay your Social Security, your Medicare, all that can still be made. You just can't pay all the BS. But nonetheless, if you don't raise the debt ceiling, that everything's going to come tumbling down. So,
let me share with everybody. George and I, we do podcasts virtually every day except for Saturday, every day, multiple podcasts. And I think it was before or after one of our podcasts, the debt ceiling issue came up, and it was like both of us just turned down the volume.
Yeah.
Like, make another cup of tea. Okay. I mean,
right.
I don't want to hear it. It's such a waste of words and airtime and everything else.
Right. No, I think it's that. But it's always very interesting how whenever there's this debt ceiling and there's money has to be shoveled out, you have the hysteria. It's always, everything is going to come crumbling down unless we raise the debt ceiling. And no one really asks, I don't get it. I mean, why is everything going to come down? I mean, there's so much money splashing around. You pay off your interest, you pay your Social Security, you pay your Medicare, and then see what's left over. I mean, that's what everybody else normally does. You pay off your important bills. And then, say, well, maybe I can't pay this and this, my club membership, my bar tab, maybe I can't pay that. But those aren't the important things. As long as you've paid your rent and, you paid your food and your children's college fees or whatever. But, bar tab, that's secondary.
It's such a farce, everything will come crashing down. I got news for people in Washington. For half the country, everything is crashing down. And what are you doing about it?
That's right.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a question with J. Gout 1776 says Ashley Babbitt. I think that's part of your name, J. Gout 1776, Ashley Babbitt. The Republican, and then no, really, guys, the Republicans will stand up for the low spending promises this time. So I think it's being
this time.
Yes, this time.
I mean, it's always interesting, when they're out of power, they're deficit hawks. Okay, I mean, it's just such a usual thing. We've seen this movie before. Okay, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, no, exactly. We play all this game. Yeah, I mean, I always love it when they do the whole deficit hawk thing. And the tax cut thing, it's like, we got to cut taxes and the tax cuts will pay for themselves someday. And then the moment they get the tax cuts through, boom, right away, hey, there's no money. I mean, basically we're running on empty. There's no money in the treasury. Sorry, can't pay for all this. So it's one wonderful thing. When it's time for tax cut, it'll pay for itself. Nothing to worry about. Then we got that through. Hey, whoa! There's nothing in the kitty. We can't possibly have our spending programs.
But it didn't stop the Republicans for spending money when they did have.
Oh yeah. I mean, these. And the Herman Montoya asks very reasonably, why won't politicians leverage the debt ceiling to cut the Pentagon budget in half instead of fighting for abortion and defunding Planned Parenthood and defund PBS? It's very interesting. Exactly. We got the crisis, with the debt. And so, well, here's a good way to save some money. That doesn't seem to occur.
Also, if we could throw in the Green New Deal. One way to get the New Deal through is to cut the Pentagon, because the Pentagon is the biggest polluter in the world.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It's just very funny, that whole this whole debt ceiling hysteria, and no one ever occurs. Well, all right, well, let's just come back on the spending. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this is how we're moving along, and so we have Susanna being again very, very generous. Thank you so much, Susanna. So paying half price during happy hour for mimosas at brunch. I think that's I think apropos of this the wonderful spending plans and which they pay for. I mean, again, Pelosi, when it comes time for belt tightening, she's not going to be doing too much belt tightening. So just but it itself is a sort of a bizarre kind of thing of saying, well, you've got to raise the debt ceiling. Why do we have to raise the debt ceiling? Well, so that we can pay our $5 trillion programs. As well, shouldn't we basically think about not spending $5 trillion on a whole lot of BS rather than raising the debt? So no, you got to raise. We have to raise the debt ceiling so that we get our spending program through. I mean, I think it's if it's such a crisis, then hey, how about not spending all this money?
Well, what they want to do is it's something you and I have talked about in the past. This is essentially a huge jobs program for people that think like they do. Okay, so all of the diversity directors and counselors, okay, and the equity police and all of this, and it's an interesting way. It relieves pressure on a whole cadre, a whole generations with an S of young people that are quote unquote overeducated, which they didn't learn anything. And it's a way to give them a job to reinforce the life and preservation of the system. Okay.
Right.
No, I mean, it's very ideologically driven.
Yes, no, I agree. So we have a question again, another one from Kevin Dorr. Thank you so much. Kevin is a DOD official in charge of foreign arms sales, leaving her job for a Boeing job. What part of the free market and capitalism is this? None whatsoever. It's you basically parlay your nice cushy job in the Pentagon, and then you get your nice gig at Boeing. Much better paid, but you've done your job. And of course, what do? I mean, you're basically going to make sure that the Pentagon is going to be ordering these huge contracts from Boeing. And not only that, you use your contacts in order to get your Saudi friends and your United Arab Emirates friends and all the Gulf states that they're going to be ordering from Boeing. It's very, very nice. I mean, it's like, of course, when Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex, that's exactly what he meant. He said there's a kind of revolving door. You do your stint in government, and then you go into a lucrative arms sales business.
And that's why what we're presented as politics on cable news and in the broadsheets and all that, you know what it is? Just one big Truman Show. That's all it is.
Yep.
It's all kabuki theater.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly right. So I mean but that's it's kind of a strange sort of thing that they've been promising for years that they're going to crack down on lobbyists, they're going to crack down on people not parlaying their public service, for private gain. It's got worse. All of the promises, all from 1970s on. Oh no, we're not going to do any of this. No more of the revolving door. Government job to a lobbyist. Oh, we're not going to do this anymore. It's worse now than it was back in the 1970s.
Except for the Trump family, they're the ones that lost money in all of this.
That's it. Yeah. That's right. And then again, when we talked about the particularly the Saudis, when you think of this, the huge markup that the Saudis, I mean, the Saudis overpay ridiculously for all this Boeing. But again, that's part of the deal they have with the United States. You pay twice as much for Boeing as anyone else. Hey, but you know, you get in good with the Americans.
And not to speak of their portfolio on Wall Street.
Exactly. So yeah. So the question to you, Peter, from Coop W says, Peter, how many vape pens do you have?
A lot.
So I figured.
Well, this is what I can hold in one hand.
Yes, yes. All right, well, that's very nice. Yeah. And then Homer Montoya asks, Saudi Arabia acquires a football club in the United Kingdom. Why there's no backlash in the Western media? I think he's talking about Newcastle United, but I think Saudi Arabia has purchased. But it is an interesting phenomenon of the billionaires from Saudi Arabia, Russia, and who going to move in to this world of football, and they buy up these illustrious, prestigious clubs. Not sure how much money they really make on that, but it is interesting that they invest all this money in football in the UK. They don't really invest it in their own countries. You know, hey, how about I spend money in trying to build up a Saudi national football league or a Saudi football team? They never do that. I mean, say, Abramovich. I mean, Abramovich spent all that money buying up Chelsea, but again, hey, Russian football, it really isn't very good. I mean, this is where you need to be investing some money in. Try and develop Russian talent, because I think it's appalling that Russia is so far behind many other European countries, that they're not really competitive at the highest levels.
I can tell you that Russian football fans are constantly furious about that. Right. With almost 148 million people, you can't get a couple teams that are internationally competitive. Yeah, it's a big question. Okay, and it infuriates quite a few people. Actually, speaking of which, right behind the building that I'm looking at right now is Spartak, their big stadium. State of the art. It is an amazing place. Too bad they don't have a team to match the place.
Yes. Yeah, exactly the thing. I mean,
and just down the street from me is Dynamo. Again, Moscow. State of the art. I mean, you go in there, you think there's nothing better in the world. I mean, this is the best of the best. Okay, it was for FIFA in 2018.
Yeah.
And COVID and the lockdowns and all that, they don't even get to use the stadiums all that much. Okay, so they have the money for the infrastructure, they just can't seem to get the talent.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. It's but again, we should be able to get money. I mean, the same way, like as in Hungary, you have these big stadiums, beautiful stadiums, gigantic stadiums. You just don't have a team to go with it. So if you're going to invest money, then invest in players. Get a top class coach to start with, and so on. So it's
and having said that, you guys, neither George and I are football fans. Okay.
Well, I'm sort of a football fan.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. No, but the interesting thing is that I grew up in the UK, and I used to follow. Chelsea was my team. As was Chelsea still my team, but. The strange thing is now with all this again international globalism and money just pouring in from everywhere, is that like if you're a supporter of Chelsea, I mean Chelsea team really has almost nothing to do with Chelsea. Most of the players are not from England. I mean they're from all over the world. I mean it's not just that they're not from Chelsea, they're just not from the UK. I mean many of them just barely know any English. The coach is, always someone from outside of the country. Abramovich, the owner, obviously is from Russia. So it's a very strange thing, like the way football has evolved. Like, the British are still, it's my team, Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, even though they have absolutely nothing to do with Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal. I mean, they have nothing even to do with the United Kingdom.
Oh, how much of those football teams now presently invest in the community? I mean, or is it yeah, that's what I thought. I would think.
I don't think so at all. I mean, I think that the money goes to the players who are wildly overpaid. And you know, it is not affordable. I mean, football was traditionally a working class game. You know, poor people could afford to go and watch a game, and it didn't cost that much. Now it's horrendous. You know, ordinary working class people, they can't afford to go to the stadium, so they watch it on television, and a lot of the money comes from television rights. So. But yeah, it's again, that the fact that it's no longer a kind of a working class game, it just shows how football has evolved.
Yeah, it's turned into a global mega business.
Exactly, global mega business. Exactly. Yeah. So and then Balázs Hetényi, who's a Hungarian friend who lives in Turkey, says if Russians were good, FIFA would start banning them like WADA did. That's it's an interesting, very, very interesting. Exactly. So in the other sports, particularly athletics, where Russians are good, boom. They're not, I mean, they take part, but they're not allowed to, do it under their national colors, not allowed to play the national anthem. So that, that's, because imagine if you're in football, you're not allowed to play in I think, I think they're not allowed to be honest, because the ban that was put on Russia means I don't think in any sporting activity are they allowed to play under their own national colors. So I think that's the case now, that even in football,
in an international regulated sport, yeah,
right, exactly. So I imagine if they do qualify in the next World Cup, they're going to have to come up with some kind of
if they had a good team, they'd say it would create a new conspiracy theory. Okay?
No,
they're actually robots, they're not real people. Okay?
Right, exactly. So I mean, it's kind of again, it's an interesting view of globalization. Globalization, which kind of destroys what were kind of very much a part of the community. I mean, football was a part of the community. It was an important part of people's daily lives. Now with essentially in all international people coming from all over the world, what connection does any of that have to do with the community?
It's something, in the old days, it was you were in a way, even when you went to a stadium, you were a participant, but now you're 99.9% are now just observers. And that's, I think that's really sad. It was having, again, I'm not a football fan, but in 2008, when it was here, FIFA, it was glorious, folks. It was amazing. The city was absolutely beautifully, the beautification of it years before. They did a wonderful job. All of the street signs, everything's in Russian and English, in many cases Chinese, because I'm thinking of the future. But it was just the vibe. It was really amazing. And one thing that was told to me many times, I would go the main street for tourists. It's called Stary Arbat, Old Arbat. And I went there every time I had a free afternoon, and I would sit in the outdoor cafes, and I'd sit at a big table wanting other people to sit with me. And I would seek out the English and the Scots and the Irish and all of that. And I'd say, and some people actually recognized me. And so I said, what's your biggest reaction? You know what the universal thing was, George? They lied to us. This is actually a nice place. People are nice.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. It was an extraordinary World Cup, because remember the propaganda before that was that the Russians are all racists. There's going to be all sorts of racist chants and everything at stadiums, and anyone at all, any person of color, who's going to come to Russia is likely to be mugged and humiliated and so on. None of that, nothing like that occurred. It was all of that was just this very ugly propaganda.
It was really shameful because the city was extreme. I mean, Muscovites are not the friendliest people, okay? But the city was very, very welcoming, and everything that could possibly be done. I actually, and a lot of the tourists came that didn't have a lot of money, and particularly when I think of like the UK, and these guys were basically working class. And I can remember we were sitting, like I said, we were on Stary Arbat, which is very close to the Kremlin, and they needed to go to a place called Park Kultury to meet a friend. And they were all worried about how much a taxi would cost. And I said, well, let's take the metro. And they said, oh, I don't know, that's really expensive. I said, no, it's not. And I said, and I'll even pay for it. So I took these 5 guys, we went to the end of the street, went into the metro, and you go deeper and deeper, and it's really deep, okay? And they were astounded. And I said, look, when do you have to meet your friend? And they said, about 45 minutes. I said, I'm going to show you 5 stations before we get there. So I took them around, and they just couldn't. They said, this is an underground city. I said, it's huge. And when you think of the Tube in London, where it's claustrophobic, it's not very clean. The atmosphere is harried. Okay. And then, you go to like Arbatskaya, which is the big one. Okay. I mean, it's the hub. Right. And it is so deep, and the ceiling is so high, and they were just astounded. I said, this is how we move around in the city. The whole city, when Muscovites conceptualize the city, it's through the metro stations, okay, the different lines. And I was so happy. I don't know, George, my favorite one is Mayakovskaya, because it has the airplane motif. Okay, and it's absolutely, it's the biggest museum in the world, everyone. It's vast, okay? And not one scrap of paper, no graffiti. There's no bad smell, okay? I mean, it is pristine. And it's not that people are worried that if you litter or you spray paint the wall, that they're not afraid of the police. They're afraid of the passengers. What are you doing to our metro? How dare you deface this monument to so many people that built it? Okay, it's a totally a different cat. For a public space, it is treated with utmost respect.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I'd say New York subways was always a nerve-wracking thing. It's not even a question of when you're traveling late in the evening, and you might be in a carriage all by yourself, and then somebody could accost you. But even during the day, suddenly you get 3 or 4 people coming in, and then say, oh, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a performance for you, and then they start doing some performance, but it's often very aggressive, and people could get hurt when they start doing break dancing. Right? There's not a lot of room for break dancing, so some passenger get kicked in the head. Well, too bad. But it's do a break dancing, and now can you pay us, please? So it is all the time. It's a kind of it's very nerve-wracking, and of course, absolutely filthy and smelly, and people doing the defecating, urinating. So a very unpleasant experience riding in the subways in New York. And that was already some years ago. I think it's got even worse under Bill de Blasio.
My favorite thing, they have these new trains that they've been incorporating over the last couple of years. And it's really extraordinary. I mean, I think it wouldn't be an exaggeration that some of them are 30, 40 cars, okay? But what's really cool about it is that they're all connected. They're not separated. So you can go at the front or at the end, whatever you choose, and you can watch the train as it goes through the tunnel. And and it's really interesting for physics, because when you're sitting there, you don't feel that you're turning at all. But when you stand in the back, you see how it's crawling through, and it's like 70 kilometers, 75 kilometers an hour. So it's moving at a pretty good clip. Okay. Right. And you can cross the entire, the city during the day is approximately 14 million people, and you can cross the city from east to west in 25 minutes. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, no, that's right. There's a comment for you, Peter, from Reckless Abandon, who said Peter's best
Good to
moment.
hear from you again. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, Peter's best moment when he ripped into CNN's Chris Fredo Cuomo after MH17. That was a very good moment, Peter. That was a memorable.
It was really interesting when it was okay. There was a CNN reporter there, some woman that had been parachuted in as usual, had nothing. She knew nothing about Russia. She knew nothing about anything, from what I could tell. But I couldn't see Chris Cuomo, and so I'm looking into the camera, and she was on the other side, just kind of loitering about. And she said afterwards, I don't think anyone's ever spoken to him like that before. And I didn't even know who Chris Cuomo was because I don't watch CNN. And well, of course, I know who he is now. And so I was leaving. And it was about 20 minutes later, I was leaving. I was going to Kievskaya Vokzal to take the metro home. And then someone sent me a link from Politico. It was about the debate. It was like 25 minutes, and it was already people were talking about it. And then my boss's boss, Margarita Samanyan, she called me and she said, "How did it go? How do you think it went?" And I said, "Well, I don't know if I won, but I certainly didn't lose."
Yeah, well, what he was trying to do, is my recollection, he was trying to do what they normally do, which is to ask a lot of when did you stop beating your wife questions. Let's put you on the defensive, and then you're trying to justify yourself, and then you're trying to justify Russia, and then he's on the offensive, and so on. And he failed to do that. It's an old trick that Cuomo does. Chris Matthews was on MSNBC. He always plays that little game, asking, I mean, his particular style was, I don't know if you remember Chris Matthews, is that he would ask you a question. Then when you start answering it, he asks you a second question. And then that distracts you because you then start trying to answer the second question before you've even asked the first. And then he throws a third question. And so now, it seems like, wow, he's really getting hammered because he's unable to answer the questions. Whereas in fact, you're just confused because you're getting a barrage of questions thrown at you. I mean, but that's what the people like Cuomo and Matthews do, which is they try to confuse whomever they're trying to nail you. But the problem was that Cuomo just didn't really know enough about it, and he kind of made a fool of himself.
The interesting thing is that that same day or the next day, Chris Cuomo's producers called RT, the international office, and asked if I would go on the next day. And I said, well, tell them certainly, but he has to come on my program first. Oh, no, we can't do that. I can go on yours, but you can't come on mine.
Oh, that's very good.
You want to come on my program, my invitation, your invitation will be honored, but you have to honor my demand as well. There was another case that was many, many years ago. There was a media conference in Athens. And it was after the bombing, the terrorist attack on Parkouri Metro, which I was only a few hundred feet away when it happened. And it was a traumatizing event for all of us because that's where the employees of RT come and leave work. And so they were carrying, what CNN did was they carried our broadcast. And then I was going to, they wanted me to do a live, and I was going on. And just as they panned out, the camera panned out to see me sitting with the presenter, they cut the broadcast. And then they said, well, we'll get back to our affiliate right. in Moscow. And so when we were at this media conference in Athens, they had the CNN gala, and the CNN people came up to me and said, "Peter, will you like to come?" And I said, "No, because I am not an affiliate of your station, so I abstain from you, because you are." We didn't use the term then, but I'll use it now. You are fake news. Yeah. And everybody, and the RT delegation was a little, "Oh, come on, don't you want to go?" I said, "No way! I'm not genuflecting to these people. No way."
Yeah.
It was Matthew Chance, that buffoon, CNN correspondent. George, you'll get this right away. It was during one of the gas wars with Ukraine. And so he had this map, you know, he said, if you look from, I guess it was from like Moscow, from Moscow all the way to Paris, Russia controls this pipeline, you know, being able to extort, you know, blackmail Europe. And I was watching it with my boss. We both folded our arms and said, who invented this story? That's the problem. Russia doesn't own the pipeline. That's why we're having problems. I mean, just unadulterated bullshit this guy was spewing.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Another one. You know, I had to go to some kind of cocktail event, which I hate going to, but I had to go to it. And I was in the National Hotel right off of Red Square, which is really cool, guys. I mean, $8 for a Coke. Okay, a little bottle. Okay, and so there I am in the bar, and they have CNN, and you know, and it was during when there was the referendum in Crimea. Russia has invaded Crimea with 25,000 troops and military and naval forces. And I was just saying, no, that was agreed to in 1991. Right. And they'd have rotations 3 times a year, and everybody, it's publicly known information. Those troops were already there, okay? And then one thing that they'll never tell you, I don't remember the number now, but something in the 90th percentile of the Ukrainian naval forces stationed in Crimea, the Russians gave them a choice. You want to become part of the Russian Navy? Yeah, I'll do it. So they just changed uniforms. Right. No one ever talks about that. Wow, for an invasion. How many people died, George? 1 friendly fire on the Ukrainian side. It's a total hash of a story. They lied through their teeth about it.
Yeah, that's right. But the strange thing is it's an ongoing thing. They're still talking about the Russian invasion of Crimea, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And then, you know, it just simply by dint of repetition, they never have to present any evidence for it. It's, oh, well, there's just a Russian invasion. And so that really is just the fake news as you describe it. but I remember, going back to the Chris Cuomo, is that at that time the media went into overdrive, saying that it was the Russians who shot down the airline. That was it. They had that story that it was the Russians who had shot it down. And so they were rushing with that tale when they had absolutely no evidence. Remember what was the name of that guy, John Stewart, when he said, oh, the Russians are to blame because the Russians are to blame. So they didn't have any of that. And then that was the whole point of why Chris Cuomo wanted you on, immediately just to say, hey, the Russians are to blame. There was nothing whatever as evidence for it, but they just wanted to have that story that it was the Russians who did this.
Yeah, and I remember remembering the interview now. I said, with the vast resources, intelligence resources, billions of dollars spent every single year, and you don't have one picture of this, okay? You don't have any eyes in the sky. Right. Oh, you have eyes in the sky for anything else, for everything else, okay? Right. One journalist that I knew that worked for The Guardian, he's out saying the Russians have sending military equipment and troops into Ukraine. Oh, but I forgot my phone. I can't take a picture.
That's right. Yeah, that was the Guardian correspondent who said that. Oh yeah, I saw with my own eyes Russian tanks crossing into Ukraine. Damn! If only I hadn't left my camera at home. Oh, well, you mean you're a journalist and you just left your telephone at home, couldn't take any pictures. He was the same correspondent who I think then, when he covered the 2018 World Cup, said that, oh, he was in this bar and the Russians were singing Nazi songs. Imagine that, Russians were singing Nazi songs, but damn, he didn't bring his damn camera with him. I mean, his damn phone with him so that he could record Russians singing these Nazi songs.
That is just simply impossible. That is not that. That's an unspeakable lie, okay? That is something that would never, ever happen here, okay? Ever.
Yeah.
George and I go for on and on about this. The Poroshenko government showed Russian passports of these soldiers Well, soldiers don't have civilian passports. They're taken away from them.
Right.
When you're in the service, you're given different papers.
Yes.
See,
Yes.
it's these Bellingcat people that just jump on anything, okay? And if you look at, the standard procedure of doing things, then it wrecks their entire story. And then that just gives them an opportunity to do it again. What we do is debunk and debunk and debunk, okay? And George and I have a sterling record. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, no, that's right. And there's no question that they had this story about Russia, and they wanted to run with it. And much the same with the story, with the Trump Russia, they had that story. They continued to repeat it. No evidence for it, but they just continued to recycle it. Collected, the New York Times, Washington Post, they collected the Pulitzer Prize for their Russiagate reporting. All of it has turned out to be a complete dud. Though typically they're not giving their Pulitzer Prize back. But then they move on to the next phony story. We already talked about that, the Russia bounty story, and now they suddenly drop Russia because Biden is half making nice with Russia. They're making some effort to negotiate something or other with Russia. So the mainstream media, which is in cahoots with the Biden administration, suddenly drop Russia. It's going to come back. You can absolutely be sure that as the 2022 election goes into top gear, they're going to say Russia is absolutely involved right up to its eyeballs in this campaign. We have a good record of Vladimir Putin on the telephone ordering his agents in the United States to make sure that the Democrats lose control of the House.
How did that work?
Sure. We've got it. We've got Putin on the phone.
How did it work out in 2020? Who ended up being inaugurated?
That's it.
All right, the Russians didn't come through. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean but that's how they play it. And then reckless abandon points about the voice of Navalny's phone was the FSB agent in the video. But I think we had that. So yeah, it's another kind of classic. We have the phone call. It's
Luke Harding with the 1940s Cyrillic typewriter. Okay.
James H mentions something we've talked about, is that we haven't heard very much about the Skripals for a while. Well, that's a very good one. We did hear something. I mean, there was somebody, a third person was sort of indicted. They don't use the term in the UK. They brought criminal charges against a third person who was supposedly along with what was the name of those two? Was it Bashirov and whatever the name is? Popov and Ivanov. But the third person they've charged. So, but again, all of these things are completely meaningless because you can go on charging, picking on Russian names out of a telephone directory in Moscow. It doesn't, since that that you're not going to get anywhere. And incidentally, the UK authorities are not even making any effort to ask for their extradition. It's not like they're going, well, here's our evidence, and we're going to a Moscow court to file extradition papers. They're not even doing it. So, well, what's the point of arguing with the Russians? They're just going to say no. So we're not even going to bother asking to extradite them.
If they truly believe in their ridiculous narrative, they should break diplomatic relations. Okay, if you truly believe it, step up and put your money where your mouth is. Okay, they don't believe it, not for a second. Okay, when Theresa May, when she came out, within hours, saying, we have evidence, blah, blah. No, she was just talking out of her proverbial, what, okay? No, there was no evidence. It's just a claim.
Exactly.
This to be clear to everybody here. George and I are just into forensic evidence. Let's see what you got, okay? Right. Maybe you're right, but you don't just say it and expect us to believe you. Because we've been down these rabbit holes with you people for as long as we've been alive. So, I mean, it's incumbent upon you to convince me, okay?
Well, that's
incumbent upon me to trust you.
No, that's exactly right, because you have to come up with some evidence. I mean, whoever makes the accusation, the burden is on the one who makes the accusation. So you're making a serious charge. You are saying the Russians sent an assassination squad to the UK to assassinate somebody, and they used chemical weapons. You know, they always use that one. They use chemical weapons to commit this assassination. When they come up with the evidence, but in fact, all they have to do is, you know, here's a vial. Can you go and test it in the lab? Yes, we just tested it in the lab. It is definitely a Novichok. Is it, what is this? Anybody could just come along with a little vial or something and say, oh, here, test it, would you? Oh, that's it. We've got the evidence. It's a little like when we're talking about the MH17. You know, I think I remember seeing a map, and then somebody, you know, picks up a ruler, draws a line on the ruler. Ah, that shows the trajectory of the missile that was launched. Well, that's, you know, I can see that you know how to use a ruler and a pencil. I mean, where's your evidence that Russia had anything to do with launching of the missile? So in the same way, they have come up with no evidence whatever, either about the Skripals or about Navalny, you know, which would, like, you know, hey, let's look at the lab test and let's, you know, see everything that you extracted and so on and so on. What tests did you make? You know, there should be lab reports, very straightforward. In any lab, there are detailed reports of the experiments that you just done.
And that's what scientists did at the OPCW.
Right.
They became whistleblowers, and then they were completely defamed. Okay, so you know when evidence was presented that this isn't what you think. Oh well, then you must be wrong. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
It just boggles the mind. All right, George, we're almost at 2 hours now here.
All right. Well, a couple of other questions. Maria Pevčić was the star speaker at Tor Havosen and Gary Kasparov's fake Oslo Freedom Forum this week in Miami, giving her MI6 speech in weird English. Well, that's right. I mean, you know, Gary Kasparov, you know, is a kind of, you know, he's an interesting kind of figure, always kind of mysterious why somebody who enjoyed such a privileged existence in the Soviet Union, you know, everything was bestowed upon him. Quite why he developed such intense hatred, either for the system that rewarded him so handsomely, but particularly on the Russian people, who again treated him very generously. It always seemed mysterious to me what was really driving Kasparov.
And no one takes him seriously here. No. I mean, if he wants to talk about chess, people will listen to him. Yeah. But when he goes down, you know, when he pulls out his shtick about, you know, being, you know, Putin is this, Putin is that, people just, you know, okay, Gary, good for you. Stay with the chess. Okay. You're good at that.
I agree. All right, Peter. Do you have any final parting thoughts?
I need a beer.
Yeah,
because we did a Zoom call before this, so George and I are, you know,
right. Yeah, no,
we're riding on fumes right now.
Yeah, no, but I think it's always a lot of fun when we're having these discussions with fellow gagglers. I think there's a lot of all sorts of interesting observations and comments and obviously a very generous contribution. So much, you know, we really appreciate it. We so enjoy it now. It's, you know, part of our Friday evening ritual, and we intend to keep it as part of our ritual as long as YouTube has us. So, you know, that's always up in the air.
We put out a new product, everyone. You know, we'd like to have a kind of a round table, get 3 to 5 gagglers to talk to George and I, and it would be really, really interesting. We really genuinely like answering questions and talking to people, but it would be really great if we could all see each other, okay? It's easier to react to each other, and just don't be shy. That's why we're thinking at 3 to 5 people, so you don't feel like all the pressure is on you, okay? And it would just be kind of a virtual a round table with beer, okay? Virtual beer, okay? So please give that a thought. Also, please go to the store. We've got some nice things up there. George does a weekly live stream.
Live stream on locals, yeah.
Again, you could do a one-on-one with us on Zoom. Also, we're gonna probably, George, we got to get around to do the mailbag. Okay.
That's like a mailbag, and yeah, and then we have the store, and this Zoom calls are, I think, a lot of fun, because, as you say, we can have several people on the call at the same time, so it would be a kind of a dialogue with a number of gagglers. So it's very interesting for us. I think it'll be very interesting for you. So that should be
Just a sec.
quick.
Buddy wants to say something to me. Hang on.
Good, excellent.
Tip jar.
Tip jar, that's it, exactly. And Buddy, he has a point. He said that
he has expenses too. Okay.
Exactly. He has expenses, and he thinks, hey, these tip jar, it doesn't fill itself. You're using my image. I don't get proper compensation for the use of my image. So how about at least putting a few coins in the tip jar? I think, and I heartily concur with that. So again, we're very grateful for all of your help and friendship and support. So anything you can contribute to the tip jar would be most welcome. We'll be very grateful for it. And the more you help us, the better the product will be. We don't have we don't have billionaires breaking down the door trying to help us out. So we rely on the kindness of strangers. So thank you for everything. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. Bye. See you soon.
You guys.
Bye.